What's that quote? People don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Yeah, that's me. Books. Well, hi guys, it's Carrie, and we're gonna do a little book Q&A. You guys sent me a bunch of questions on Instagram. Thank you so much. If you're new here, I live in Seoul, and the air quality has just been so bad for the past couple days, and I was out and about filming for my main channel and stuff, so I'm feeling okay, but it just feels like I've got dust in my chest, you know? So I have got my tea, lots of honey in there, and your questions. I hope you don't mind that we're just gonna have like a chill, chatty video, because that's literally all my body can do right now. But I'm in good spirits. Your questions are all so great. I'm really excited to answer them. Let's dive in. Okay, so I'm gonna start with kind of the more popular questions right now. If you hear dinging in the background at any time, my husband left his iPad here, and I, for the life of me, do not know how to turn off the sound because every electronic thing that I own is always on silent mode. So the dings, we'll try and work around them. So the first question is, how have your favorite genres changed over time? And thinking about them, they really haven't. When I was a kid, I was always most drawn to fantasy, historical fiction, and mystery, and that still holds true. I've grown to be able to incorporate more genres into what I read, but my favorites are still like fantasy, historical fiction, and mystery. I almost said just murder. That makes me sound crazy, but mystery. I got a lot of questions about my favorite reading background music, or do I play music? No, I don't like sounds on, but if I'm reading in a cafe, it's okay. I kind of like the sounds of people around me, and then preferably music without any words. I don't know how people listen to things with words while you're reading. I don't like it. But so if somebody else, like I go to a cafe and somebody else has put on music and it's like soft jazz or classical, I'm fine with that. But when I'm at home, nothing. This one was asked in a lot of different ways, but the gist of the question is, do you force yourself to finish a book even if you're not feeling it? And I used to not be able to. Like if I couldn't get into it, I would absolutely stop. And I had like a low tolerance. Like it would be like 1 or 2 chapters and I would just not. And my best friend Kayla is the opposite. She will finish a book. She will give the book until the last page to prove to her that it's a good book. I didn't understand how she did it until, as I've been reading more and more, I'm giving books more of a chance. I think especially when I was working full-time, which I'll talk about I think in another question, but when I didn't have a lot of time to read, I was really strict about which books I would like. If I felt like this book was wasting my time, get out of here. But now that I have more time to read, I'm willing to give a book a chance, especially if it's mystery or like I'm interested in the conflict. Like recently I read the Red Queen series, which I actually did not like, but I wanted to see like what happens at the end. I really wanted to know. So I ended up reading all 4 books. So I'm getting better, but it's really only if there's a conflict or a mystery that I just want to know. The ending, I want to know. And so leading into that, this question is, how do you make time for reading? And this was something I really had to train myself to do, because I used to, when I was commuting, when I lived in New York, I had like 1 hour round trip. Living here in Seoul, I had like 20 minutes each way, and both of them were on the subway. So I only listened to music. Like the idea of doing anything else, I couldn't focus. But so I had to kind of teach myself to focus in those tiny slots that I have in my day, especially because I'm not good at reading in spurts. I like to give myself like an hour or 2 hours to just dive into a book. So it was something I kind of had to train myself to do. I also really like to read before bed, which is when most of my reading takes place. But honestly, like during college, when I had multiple jobs and internships and classes, I didn't read. Like to be quite honest, I didn't read. And it's only now that I'm able to set my own schedule, because I'm freelancing and stuff like that, that I'm actually able to read as much as I want to. I don't have a good answer for that, because when I was incredibly busy and on like a 9-to-5 kind of schedule, I didn't read. So this one is so hard. Oh my God. If you had the space would you have a library or would you choose to be a book minimalist? And this is a problem I have, like a question I ask myself all the time, because I would love to have a library. But now I live in a one-room apartment. We're gonna be moving at some point, so I don't want to accumulate a whole lot of books. What I would ideally love is in the future to have like a book cafe or some kind of library where I actually shared it with the community. So that I felt a little bit like less guilty or less of like a hoarder. I would like to be able to like share it with everybody, you know? Okay, the big debate, physical books or ebooks. So I was 110% team physical book, always, up until maybe like 2 years ago, and I won an iPad in a contest. I live in Korea where the library system isn't that great, and like all the bookstores, the books are rather expensive and they're usually only the bestsellers or the classics, you know. So I started borrowing books using my iPad, and the reason I don't use a Kindle or anything is simply because I won an iPad. I don't have any preference, it's just that I prefer the free one. That's my iPad spiel. One thing I did notice kind of recently about ebooks is that with a physical book, you can see how long it is. But when you open an ebook and it tells you like, oh, it's 300, 400, 500 pages long, my brain doesn't really compute that, thinking of like, man, that's a really long book, you know? So if it were a physical copy, like I recently got the physical copy of Addie LaRue, and I was shocked by how long it was. But then I looked, and that's like the typical length of a book that I read in an ebook. So I find that physical books might be a little intimidating because you can see the length, versus an ebook, you're just like, oh yeah, like let's just flip through it, and you end up finishing a book. I don't know, didn't explain that very well, but I do appreciate ebooks because I can carry a lot of them with me, and I'm not intimidated to start one that I think is too long and I don't have enough time for it, when I actually do. I'm okay. I'm in a very good relationship with ebooks now. So yes, but physical. Book recommendations for someone who loved reading as a kid but hasn't read in years. And I would say, first of all, return to the books that you loved as a kid, just to get back in the habit of reading. There's no shame with reading children's books or middle grade or young adult books, but also so many books that we loved as kids have like older brother and sister books, you know? So for example, I think that's why Six of Crows, even though that is technically young adult, we actually talked about this. I really loved The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funke, and that is like the little brother book of Six of Crows, I think. And then through that book, I was able to find more like adult fantasy or anything like that. Okay, this one made me laugh. So do you ever read books in other languages? So actually I have a video idea that I might do for this channel in the future. I remember in Spanish class, I think it was my 4th year of Spanish, we had to do a book report, and I chose Isabel Allende's, I think it was De Amor y de Sombras. I love Isabel Allende, but like magical realism, all that stuff, I can barely understand it in English. So for me, not even being fluent in Spanish, to have to read that book, I know I did not understand the plot. What I would like to do is actually read it again in English and just see what on earth I read. That was like my junior year of high school. I would love to do that. That's like a future video idea. I typically read in English. There are very few books that I read in other languages. I do love reading Le Petit Prince in French because that is pretty much my level of French. It's such a cute story, and I like reading it in French. So that's that. So this one might be a little bit of a spoiler for the Grishaverse. So if you haven't read Shadow and Bone yet, maybe skip this part. The question is, if you were Alina from Shadow and Bone, would you have picked the Darkling or Mal? And if you don't want the spoiler, please turn away for a moment. Are you kidding me? Please. So you're safe now if you haven't read it, but next up, do you prefer a book ending to provide answers or to be left for interpretation? I like answers. I'm okay with a tiny bit of giving my imagination room to create the future, but I also would prefer more answers than less. Except for what we talked about in the love triangle video that I posted a couple weeks ago. That was too many answers for me. But yeah, I do prefer a unambiguous ending. Have you ever felt pressure to have read certain books before a certain age, like classics and stuff? And definitely, I think especially when you're still in school, you come across a lot of these listicles that are like 100 books you have to read before you graduate college. I think it's a little bit silly. We put a lot of emphasis on the classics when I think a lot of contemporary books are actually more valuable for like our everyday life. I'm not saying the classics aren't great, they're classics for a reason, but I don't understand the pressure of like, you have to read these books. A lot of questions about book hangovers, how to get over a book. Do you feel book depression? Yes. It's especially for me when the world is built really well, and also especially when it comes to a series. Usually for like a one-off book, I don't get hit that hard, but like honestly, every series I read, even if it's a series I didn't really love, I hate leaving a world behind. So yeah, I pretty much have a book hangover after every series that I read, and I don't have any cures for it. I cannot help you. Sometimes I reread the series, which is almost torturous, and I don't recommend it, but I do it. Yeah, I just suffer. Okay, potentially controversial question. What are my thoughts on fan fiction? I had a couple people ask this. So since I was a kid, the fandoms that I've been involved in have always been real people. Like I was really into My Chemical Romance, who are real life people, and I was really into like K-pop, and those are all real life people. And I really don't feel comfortable reading about people who are like really alive. I don't know, it feels weird to like manipulate someone who's actually like really living off the page. That's just not it. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it just makes me uncomfortable to read it. I've never been deep enough into a fandom where I felt curious enough to read fan fiction for like fictional characters. So many of the people that I read now started off as fan fiction writers. So there's absolutely like, I don't think that it's a shameful thing at all. I know that like Harry Potter especially has a really amazing community. It's just never been my thing, and that's all. So if you like it, go for it. Did I grow up in a bookworm family? My mom is literally a librarian, so yes. I got a lot of questions about writing. I didn't think I'd get as many questions about writing as I did, so I'm actually going to save the writing questions for a different Q&A. Yeah, because this is already so long. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is a very important one. Do you remember what... Can you hear that man just honking outside my house? Do you remember what you read after a while? I am the queen of forgetting plot lines. Like, the second I close the book, it's gone for me. I mean, not 100%, but so much of the plot is just... And I used to feel really horrible about it because I would try, like, even when I make videos about like what I read this month, I have to go back and like Google it and like make sure I actually remember what I read. So I felt really bad about it for a while, but I read, I believe it was in M Train, by Patti Smith. And Patti Smith is an artist. She's a ferocious reader. She's a writer. And in her book M Train, she talks about how she's the same. Like she finishes that last page and the plot is just gone. And that made me feel really good that someone who is so interested in reading and writing as she is feels the same way. So if you are like me and you forget a book, I mean, it's kind of a blessing because I love to read thrillers and I forget. I can reread a mystery and be shocked at the end. So it's, you know, blessing and a curse, leaning towards the blessing side. I don't remember books. I remember how they make me feel. What's that quote? People don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. Yeah, that's me. Books. This one made me laugh. Tips on posture for comfortable reading. Okay, I'm the worst. I'm literally, you know the meme with the shrimp? I'm the shrimp. I am the shrimp. I used to have these pillows. If you grew up, like if you were a kid in the early 2000s, do you remember those pillows that were like armchairs? Those were great. Those were great. Like you could lay in bed, you could have back support, arm support. It was wonderful. Early 2000s, what a time. Now I kind of lay in my bed, which isn't that great because it pushes my head forward. And other times I'll sit in my rocking chair, which is probably the best position for me. Korea, the aesthetic in cafes right now is like, be as uncomfortable as possible. So all the chairs are just horrible. So typically if I'm out, even my favorite cafe that I go to read to, I sit on a wooden stool and I'm like, annyeonghaseyo, you know, shrimpy. Maybe that's a future video idea, actually. Thank you for that one. And last question before this gets too long. Have you ever had a crush on a fictional character? If yes, whom? Literally, it is a miracle if I get through a book and I don't have a crush on multiple characters, even the bad guys and gals, you know. Anyway, so that question just made me laugh because I was like, do people not fall in love with every single character in the books that they read? So thank you for that one. That one made me giggle. Anyway, this was really cute. This was fun. Thank you guys so much. I am gonna do a writing one because you guys had a lot of really interesting questions about writing that I didn't even think about. I think you guys might think that I'm a better or more, I don't know, accomplished writer than I am, because you asked a lot of deep questions that I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So yeah, this was super cute. If you want any more like book Q&As or anything like that, let me know. This was a nice little fireside chat. I'm using the Hinoki candle, so my house smells like a cedar, like fir tree forest, which is really nice. I'm gonna pop out. I'm gonna do another quick plug for my Discord server. We started a Discord server and we have a channel specifically for bookworms. So there will be a link down below if you want to join that. We just talk about books. It's a cute place. Everybody's super duper nice, like so nice. I will link that down below. I'm gonna go chug this tea, try and get all of this pollution out of me. And yeah, I will talk to you guys next time. I know that I name dropped Addie LaRue in this video. That will actually be my next video. I'm going to be doing a reading vlog. I'm so excited. I've been holding off, waiting. V.E. Schwab posted so many like tiny little snippets of the book, and I had to like hold myself off from looking at her Instagram stories because I didn't want to ruin a single thing. I'm very excited for it. I have the physical copy. I bought the most beautiful version. I digress. I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and yeah, let me know, answer any of the questions down below. Seriously, I love chatting with you guys. So I will see you guys next time with Addie. It's gonna be December already, right? So yeah, see you next month. All right, let's finish 2020 out strong. Let's finish this, okay? Bye.